Flames. Wow, would you look at this? Afterburner. Not who you thought it would be. It's two long-haired men without razors. Welcome to the program. Ryan Pinder and Kent Wilson, the original Flames Nation OG, I believe, Kent. Is that not correct?
Yep.
Back to your roots.
Me and Steinberg back in the day. That's
wow.
Right.
How about that? Welcome to it. Thank you for being here. The Calgary Flames. I don't know if it's quite Haley's Comet level, but they scored a power play goal. The good news, Kent, it was the only goal of the entire game, and they did win. They did not lose to a team with a 19-game losing skid, and they do beat the Chicago Blackhawks for the first time in 5 tries. A Jacob Markstrom-aided shutty at the Scotiabank Saddledome will send them into the All-Star break. This was not a Picasso, my friend. This was some heavy barn painting done, but they got the job done.
Yeah, they won, but they kind of tried to lose, at least in the first half of the game.
They sure looked like it, yeah.
5 breakaways, I think, given up. So it was a lot of Markstrom getting them through that one.
It was indeed. Let's get right to it. It's your Betway highlight of the night. Betway, get the app. Bet the responsible way. 19 plus Ontario only. There is no doubt about it. Is in the standings without him. Now, maybe you get a hot run out of Dustin Wolf or something like that, but he's not here very often. He's had 5 starts, I believe, at the NHL level. Markstrom's resurgence is probably the only reason they're around 500. Never mind, we're flirting for a wild card just a week or so ago.
I was going to say, in the grand scheme of things,
you
know, I'm team rebuild. Everybody knows that. So, he's been great. I think the last time I looked at him, his stats, he had, you know, the best expected goal saved in the league. So
goal save above expected. He's been awesome. And again,
for a while,
the important context, Ken, is like the environment he's playing in is not good. To have a shutout tonight when I counted 5 first half breakaways and another, I'm like, is that a breakaway or is that like splitting D? Like you're really trying to classify the in close chances where a forward's all alone. I mean, this is a perfect example of a goalie stealing 2 points tonight.
Yeah, and then there was one with 2 seconds left there or something.
Of course,
saved the win. So, yeah, it's he was great. I really liked the Backlund line through most of the night. I thought they're mostly full marks aside from not scoring. Lindholm probably had one of his better games in a while, and then it was kind of a tire fire otherwise, to tell you the truth.
It really was. It was an ugly first half of the game, and we talk about the chances. I mean, Boris Tkachuk, breakaway, toe save. That's early. Joey Anderson, breakaway, 25 stops him. That's Jacob Markstrom, if you don't know his number. Reichel comes in, another save. Then it's Tkachuk with a shorthanded breakaway, because, of course, shorthanded breakaways. It was nearly a 3rd game in a row they surrendered to shorty. He misses on that breakaway, so you don't give Markstrom credit, but if he wasn't in net, I'm sure, you know, Tkachuk could hit the empty net. Then it's Kurashev on a breakaway, another save from Markstrom. That was all before the Flames went to the power play where they eventually scored the game winner, which occurred midway through the second period at the 15:55 mark. So on pace for about 10 breakaways against. Of all the nights, your goalie to hang a 0, this was quite impressive. And no doubt I haven't even looked at the stars. Would you even need to? No, you don't. There it is. Markstrom a star 1, Mrazek star 2, and Elias Lindholm star 3. I will ask you this, as that was our highlight of the night for our good friends at Betway, who was great to catch up with in Jasper. And we'll see you again in Toronto as we're heading out there for All-Star break midweek this coming week. Flames are done. I think there's a couple games tomorrow. I saw Sportsnet really pushing the Seattle-Columbus matchup on TV tomorrow. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's going to tune into that one.
Yeah, and it's not as if the Hawks and Flames were appointment television, but at least you had a Canadian team involved there. Either way, I will ask you, what should the approach be in your mind with Jacob Markstrom? He's got 2.5 years left. He makes a probably better than market value $6 million a year. And the Flames, if you wanted to retain some, that would be a very, very desirable asset on top of, as you pointed out, leading the league in goals saved above expected. What options are in front of Craig Conroy? What pressure points are behind the scenes on Craig Conroy? And what's the best course of action for him to take with Markstrom?
Well, if I was Craig Conroy, I would have put him on the auction block weeks ago. So
And he may
that's
have, to be
that's where I
fair,
would start, and he may
right?
have. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's tough to sell someone with a $6 million cap hit in this environment, obviously, and a no trade clause. So
Yep.
maybe that's been attempted, and they haven't found a buyer. They may have to retain if they're interested, but he should be a hot commodity in this marketplace. There's a bunch of pretty good teams who fashion themselves as contenders who don't have great goaltending. So
Mhm.
you'd think they'd be knocking on the Flames' door, but you're right. It's that cap hit, and maybe the goalie just says, "I'm not leave. I don't want to leave anyway." So
I don't know that there's been some sort of talk of the Flames won't retain. And I don't know that that's based on a fact or just looking that they haven't really retained. I believe they retained on like Rito Berra and that was it. But they really,
extremely.
yeah. And if you look, like when were they selling in the flat cap era? Because that's really when retention has been huge and they really haven't. If you look at them the last few years, last year they were kind of in the mucky middle and they had a very like, kind of sell, kind of buy deadline. They traded Ritchie Brothers. They did some things like that. But the years prior, when we've lived in this COVID cap flat universe, they thought they could reel in a final playoff spot during the North Division Canadian year. They couldn't. And then the other years, they've been contenders. They were a 1 seed in Darryl's first year. They've added at the deadline. So to say, well, they haven't done it, they won't. I don't think that makes a lot of sense because if Murray Edwards has a budget for his hockey operations, you've got your 83.5 million or wherever the cap is. Like your job is to use that the best way you can. Like, I don't think, this guy take $1 million here and put it there. Like, no. Like if you can get a first rounder back by just eating $1 million, you have your budget. I mean, it's not like you're adding payroll to the owner. You would be shedding payroll, but retaining a piece of what is heading out. I don't really understand the logic of people saying they won't do it. And talking to people around the team, there's a thought that they absolutely would, but you're going to have to charge for a premium like that, which is, if I'm going to help you, Toronto, New Jersey, Carolina, LA with the salary on Markstrom,
Colorado,
spice. Yeah. Sure. I guess Colorado would be interesting there. You win a cup with Kemper and I don't know, but yeah. Look, we need a little spice in the spice up the deal a bit. So, and again, my thought on it is because they haven't sold Markstrom does not mean they're not trading Markstrom. They also haven't traded Tanev, and they also haven't traded Lindholm, and they also haven't extended nor traded Hannafin. And I think one of those two things is going to happen. We have to allow Craig Conroy till March, the second week of March, to really see if he's going to do it or not. But you'd be selling 3 playoff runs, and he seems like a missing piece for a lot of clubs right now.
Yeah, I mean, on the retention piece, you're right. They haven't had a lot of cause to do it. I think the last time I would have thought it would have been a good timing was when they're trying to extend Kachuk and they didn't have a lot of cap space.
Yeah.
That may have been a good time, like a Frolik move if they had to, I don't know. But you're right. We'll see now in the next couple months. Like, does this team, will it retain to get better assets? Because I think we're kind of moving out of are they buyers or sellers? Are they still trying to compete this year? I think that ship's kind of sailed now. So let's see what they do as sellers.
They entered play yesterday morning. So it might have changed last night, although I don't know there was a lot of movement. They were tied for 7th from the bottom. So if you had a NHL draft Friday night instead of regular season games, depending on Lady Luck or not, you would be sort of picking somewhere between 1 and 10, but most likely 7 or 8 or 9. That's a high-end pick, and they haven't sold anyone yet, Kent. I think you can look at how many points you are out of a wild card, but I think the GM with the long-term horizon, looking around says, oh, geez, like you can find franchise players if you can eke into the top 5. And this team without Markstrom and subtracting 1 or 2 more regular NHL defensemen and one of their only 2 or 3 good centers, this thing could sink pretty quick. If you, especially watching St. Louis, Columbus, Chicago here, teams that theoretically, St. Louis, you'd love to consider yourself in the same box as. Certainly you would think you're superior to Columbus and Chicago in the standings. It didn't play out that week at all, that way this week at all.
No, they barely beat Chicago, and I don't know why I keep getting the Chicago games when I'm on Afterburner.
Is this 2 Chicago's for you? I'm very sorry about that.
Yes, too.
We had a nice
And
Battle
they
of
lost
Alberta
the
lined up
last
for you
one.
too. And then we ended up we were in Jasper
right.
with the Oilers honks, and they wanted to, rub salt in wounds after we defeated them on the pond hockey tournament. Anyway, long story, Ken. It doesn't really matter. At least one Calgary team got
But
the
yeah,
job done that day.
I mean, when I looked up all their numbers, I think it was yesterday, they were 24th in like everything.
Yeah.
They were 24th in expected goal ratio. They were 24th in points, percentage, in goal differential. They're
Yeah.
the 24th team in the league. I mean, yeah,
That's what you are.
and they've been relatively healthy all year. It's
Yeah.
not like you've lost superstars and had to sort of limp your way along. I mean, this is
It's
the
true.
team as it's been built, right?
Yeah, no, there's been little bumps and bruises here. Like I think 3 times they missed Markstrom for about a week. They missed Tanev for that stretch during the gauntlet run where they had to pass through, I think, Denver and Las Vegas. That was tough to watch when you had people sliding into the top 4 after the Zadorov trade that had no business being there.
Right.
But there's lots of room for this team to be much worse if you are on Team Tank, and if you're on team that can make the playoffs. Tonight's a tough watch because that's a bare bones, half the Blackhawks, half the Rockford Ice Hogs type roster. And defensively, you were in shambles, right? You were in shambles defensively.
Yeah, you weren't facing. I mean, I don't know if I can name half that roster tonight, honestly.
Well, and you saw them a few weeks ago. You'd have the inside edge on the rest of us.
Even then, yeah. Not at all. So yeah, it's and the funny thing is after the first period, the Flames' expected goal ratio was 29%. The only reason it was that high is because the Backlund line was at 60.
Right. Yeah.
So everyone else is south of 20 or something. So that's Huberdeau. That's a bunch of veterans and stars playing nobody and getting their show run. I mean, they won the game eventually, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the team would be like without the Backlund line doing what they do most nights. Because most people consider them second or third on the depth chart whenever you see those sort of depth charts every night before a game, but they're the first line in terms of they chew glass all night. They play the hardest minutes, and they're usually the best line on the night in terms of chances and shots. So
if you didn't see the fourth line in the third period, you were not alone. They finished with almost no ice. Adam Klapka 2-11 on the night. That's 5 shifts. I believe all of that was in the opening 40. 4 minutes and 16 seconds for Walker Duehr, less than 5 for Cole Schwindt. And when you consider the deletion of Dylan Dubé for personal reasons, quote unquote, and obviously a lot of I guess speculation in his involvement in the 2018 World Junior Team charges that were expected to hear from the London Police on Feb 5th. When you think about Adam Ruzicka being deleted via waivers, when you think about AJ Greer with the broken something in my left lower limb, that's a full fourth line that's all of a sudden missing, Kent. And then you mix in Blake Coleman blocking a shot with his hand and clearly not 100% with the paw, didn't even skate this morning. And then that you could have had a Huberdeau suspension for that hit from behind. This is a thin group up front all of a sudden. And you're going to trade an Elias Lindholm out of here. It's getting to be a real tough sell for they can get into that last wild card for me.
Yeah. And it's the team as it is now needs to pick a lane, right? And the lane's being picked, I think, for them. By results, so it's not going to be a great watch for fans probably through the last quarter of the season, but it's good long term for this team to either be better than they are or worse, and they're not going to be better, so they should be worse. It's their curse is they're good, not great, and not bad. They need to
too
be
many
one
decent
of those other
right?
things, right?
Like you when you can put out a Coleman, a Backlund, a guy like Sharon Govich pops 30. Their top 4 D are very good in my mind. An elite goalie, like that just covers up for their complete lack of game breakers. We asked this summer, who could you pencil in for 30?
Then you have
like nobody. You might get some, luckily, but nobody you put down for 30.
Well, and then you have a night like tonight where Huberdeau comes in, and I've been up and down on the player here and there, but I thought he was just awful this evening. I
Yeah,
think two of his giveaways resulted in breakaways. He's standing still all the time in his own zone. He's
does not
he's
move
floating
well.
muffins up this. Yeah, he's floating muffins up the center of the ice. It's just like, how? Why?
It remains the
You scored
conundrum.
115 points, yeah, in this league, and you, if you were a rookie, you would have been benched tonight for sure. You would have been with Klapka and
And they did switch up the lines to start the third. Of note, it was Kadri moved up with Lindholm and Zeri, and a lot of
Yep.
the backline line, and then the scraps became the third line, which I believe would have been Huberdeau alongside Sharon Govich and Coronado. So it's
yes.
but there's not a center there. I don't really know. We definitely saw a lot of the back line, a lot of Lindholm line in the third when they needed to hang on to a 1-goal lead, and that was the only goal they did hang on. Let's get to this. It is the road ahead for Village Honda. If we had some weather here a little while ago. Do you notice that, Kent? It was bleeping awful, miserable, cold. And people realized whether their car was reliable and trustworthy in a Calgary winter or not. Let me tell you, if your car didn't pass the test and you are looking for an upgrade, much like I think the Flames are, as we look big picture here down the road, stop by Village Honda in the Northwest Auto Mall or head online to villagehonda.com. Up to around 90 pre-owned vehicles on the lot, access to nearly 500 in the dealer group, and all new vehicles are priced MSRP. Villagehonda.com presents the road ahead. This is it, Kent. They're into the All-Star break. That would have been one seriously rock bottom, miserable loss to head into a 10-day break between games for this club. They do have a victory. They finished their homestand with a mark of 2-4. It started with a win. It ended with a win. Everything else, don't want to talk about it. There were 4 losses in a row there. That was a 4-game losing skid that wiped out a 4-game winning streak that preceded it. And I tell you what, February does not look kind at all for the Calgary Flames. They start Feb 6th in Boston. They will play all 3 New York area teams, a Jersey team that we think is better than they've shown thus far and could use a goalie, an excellent Rangers squad that walloped the Sens tonight, I believe, and the Islanders under Patrick Waugh. They've just switched things up there. They've also, it's a 4-game roadie. There's one more out east as well. They play the Oilers in there. They get the Kings in there. They get Boston at home as well. There is a San Jose game in the middle, but the rest of the 10-game month of February is no good at all, Kent.
Yeah, and I think we're getting to a point where looking at future games and trying to project your record doesn't matter as much, at least if you're hoping for wins and stuff. So I really think the priority has to be the trade deadline and getting into the market and maybe even setting the market, because when you're going to market with someone like Lindholm and then Tanev and Hannafin, you kind of want to be the ones forcing other people's hands by making that trade first, I think.
So explain that to me. Like my logic would be the closer you get to the deadline, the more pressure there is for the buyers to get it done, or they're left with nothing. How do you get a good return if you're operating 3-4 weeks out?
Well, it's also an auction environment, right? So if you have, let's say there's 5 teams that are looking for a Lindholm, or there's 4 teams looking for a Tanev. If they start picking up something else over time, you narrow your partners, right?
That's fair.
So
less buyers.
They might get desperate, but there's less buyers, and then they're going to know that you're desperate too, because the Flames cannot afford to lose any of these guys for nothing, right?
Yes. We can't have the Brian Burke. Yeah, the offers weren't good enough for Camilleri, and we can't have a bad reputation on taking soft deals, so we took nothing instead, because nothing is better than something. AKA, we ran out of time. I think that was the story there.
No, that makes more sense. Yeah, we tried to make a deal and we ran out of time.
Yeah, it was. We looked up.
Don't do
12:01. Whoops.
Right.
We couldn't find a parking spot. Everything was 5 minutes behind. Yeah, Camilleri. We can't. If people think you're a bad GM, they're never going to give you good offers, or just hold an auction for your players and do that.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about the road ahead. I do want to note Elias Lindholm is an all-star. He'll be heading to Toronto midweek. That is a Thursday night players draft. I think also Thursday night they have the Professional Women's Hockey League showcase event, which 3-on-3, I believe, which should be a ton of fun. Saturday is the game. Friday is the skills competition. Flames Nation programming notes. We will have no barn burner on Wednesday as we are traveling to Toronto, and we will be live from Toronto for All-Star festivities Thursday and Friday. Also, the Department of Discipline will be recording a show, I believe, Friday from the Toronto location as well with Jay Rosehill and myself. So shameless self-promotion there. That's on our road ahead. For the rest of the fellas, it's 10 days. It might be a little too much, but you get hammered in a CBA negotiation. You take what you can get. So they get single occupancy rooms and they get a 7-day break instead of a bigger slice of the pie, Kent, or a better definition of HRR.
Better than nothing.
Yeah, I suppose. We'll take a break. When we come back, I do want to talk to you about, what's happening on the blue line, because it's not simple like it has been. There were some weird things happening. Also, Kent's got a new piece set to drop in the next coming days for the Calgary Herald. We'll talk about that. And yes, indeed, a power play goal. Where were you when you saw it? It's coming up on Afterburner. We've been telling you about our daily survivor pool at dailyfaceoff.com for Wendy's. Now, you know, SOG, GAA, and PPG can make or break your week, but don't overlook the BPMM. The Wendy's Bacon Portobello Mushroom Melt. Aha, the BPMM. Sure, it may not help you win your weekly fantasy prizes at dailyfaceoff.com, but unlike your predictions, it never, ever disappoints. Oh, BPMM. So try your luck, but don't push it, because the Bacon Portobello Mushroom Melt is only back for a limited time. And if you miss it, you're not getting a second chance. So sign up for Daily Face-Off today. It's the Survivor Pool, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. Love that. BPMM. There's not much better than hockey season, and yeah, you can always cheer on your favorite team at the Grey Eagle Resort and Casino's Stage Bar. You can enjoy the games on the massive big screen TVs they've got hanging above the bar. Friends, drinks, delicious food. Let's go. Visit Grey Eagle Resort and Casino.ca for more information. Now, maybe it's not game time yet, but there's always happy hour in the afternoon. Make the most of your day with great drinks and food at the Stage Bar and Blaze Bar and Grill for the happy hour every day, 2 to 5 at the Grey Eagle Resort and Casino. Great food, specialty drinks, all starting at $5. Visit Grey Eagle Resort and Casino.ca for more information. We'll see you there. Welcome back to Afterburner, a 1-0 shutout victory for the Calgary Flames. Jacob Markstrom, sensational early. There were spells where the Flames looked pretty good, Kent, but again, calibrating for the level of competition. This was not a let's shelf this in the greatest hits album for the Flames of the 2023-24 season.
Take the win and move on, I'd say.
Yeah, well, and they've got some time to do it, as we noted for Village Hunt on the road ahead. It's 10 days. It's Feb 6th. They'll be back at it in Boston to start a 4-game roadie through the Eastern time zone. Speaking of time, there was 4 defensemen getting almost all of it, it felt like tonight, Kent. Noah Hannafin, 27-14 on the blue line. Good Lord, Noah. If you want to talk about selling a guy, showing what he can do, that's a lot of minutes. He had 8 shot attempts, 23.5 minutes at even strength. If you didn't know Noah Hannafin was a horse in terms of ice time and skating ability tonight, there was some tape for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought that pairing with Tanev was easily the best one on the blue line. And they were on the ice with the Backlund line a bunch. And wherever they were, there was a lot of pressure. So yeah, the periods where you saw the Flames looking like an NHL team playing an AHL team was usually those 5 guys.
Yeah, I liked the first sort of like 6 to 8 minutes of the third. I thought, okay, there you go. They've rejigged the top line. Huska, whatever you said after 40 minutes, write that down, use that again, because they looked inspired for the first time of the night, or at least got some sustained pressure for the first time in a long time with a lead. Their goalie was sensational. Here's some other ice times for you on the back end. Chris Tanev, 24-18. That's a ton. for him, more than Rasmus Anderson by a considerable margin. He comes in at 21:47, and Mackenzie Weegar 23:17, over 23 minutes for Weegar. That's a ton for the top four, and the reason why is, well, Oliver Shillington got 13:40, which is not bad, all things considered. What, his second game back after not playing for 20 months? But really, it's about Dennis Gilbert, who played 8:11 and was victimized pretty routinely in those 8 minutes and 11 seconds early on. They actually were sort of wheeling Shillington and Gilbert through other pairs on the right side, not really playing them together. And I get it. It's a 1-goal game. This would have been nice for Ryan Huska if it was 4-1 or 6-0. It wasn't. And so he had to play it like he needed to protect a 1-goal lead. And that meant not a lot of Gilbert. And if you did see Gilbert, it wasn't with Shillington. It was with a veteran to his right.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is definitely easing Shillington into the game after such a long layoff, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But and even Gilbert, he's kind of been on the shelf for a while too.
That's true.
He's looked in the past. I thought Gilbert looks pretty comfortable most nights. Obviously not this night, but you're right. You know, in a 1-0 game, especially with the first half of the game looking as rough as it did, you know, he had to go with the handful of guys that were playing really well.
Yeah, we saw it in the third with the forwards as well. Jonathan Huberdeau finishes with 14.5 minutes. That's not a ton. Backlund, 23 minutes. Holy, there's a lot of Backlund tonight. And Elias Lindholm nearly hits the 22-minute mark. Speaking of that, let's get to DoorDash. What's DoorDash? Come on, you know what DoorDash is. It's simple. You download the app and you get what you want when you want it. Why would you spend all this time driving around trying to find parking, doing all that stuff when you can have it dropped off right at your door? And it's more than just restaurants. It could be groceries, pharmacies, flower stores, whatever you need. DoorDash can go grab that on the way. In fact, they can make multiple stops. They'll double dash for you with 1 delivery charge, not 2. And for our first-time dashers here watching us on Flames Nation YouTube or listening, wherever you're listening to your podcast, use the promo code NATION25 when you download the DoorDash app, and you'll be entered and will absolutely get 25% off your first order over $15 and free delivery on that first order. Canada only, minimum $15 purchase. Sounds pretty good. So next time you hit the minus 30 trough, don't be worried, but DoorDash got you. Just tip your driver. Don't be a jerk, right? The DoorDash presents Hungry for More. I mean, there's a few obvious ones. If Jacob Markstrom wants to keep playing like that, you should be able to get a king's ransom for him. So there's that. Yeah. Although I do understand the impact that has on what I call the inverse standings. The other is Elias Lindholm, who certainly looked like there was a bunch of relief when he scored his first goal in. It's funny. They talked about it on the broadcast, and I do think there's a lot more luck in this sport than commentators ever want to talk about. But Sam Reinhart has 20 goals on the power play alone. He's on pace for like 38 on the season, if I'm correct. We're just past the midpoint. He's a UFA. He's going to get paid. There's some other guys having great UFA seasons. Elias Lindholm is not one. Well off his career mark 2 years ago, albeit with much better line mates. What do you see from Lindholm? Are you seeing a guy that is wearing a bit of the stress of the free agent season and I suppose the unknown of what lies ahead with the deadline?
It's definitely a bit of that. I also think that he's really struggled to find a fit post Tkachuk and Gaudreau. I mean, he worked pretty well with Toffoli, but then Toffoli's gone.
Right.
So pretty much all year there's just been no chemistry with almost maybe Sharangovich, but at even strength they actually get grossly outplayed, to tell you the truth. They Sharangovich went on that heater.
Yep.
And he's scoring a lot.
6 I think.
But if you look at their numbers as a line, they get grossly outshot and they get grossly outscored at even strength. So it's he's really struggled to have a good two-way game this year for sure. And then he hasn't been able to score much in the last 2 months either. So like you say, this is still a good player. And I think if he finds a good situation when he gets traded, and I'm sure he hopes that happens, then that will be his ticket as a UFA. If he has a good last quarter, if he has a good playoff run with someone,
Yeah.
I think he can get back into that 7-8 million a year, but I don't know what will happen if not.
I agree with you. I just think about what he could look like if he went to Colorado and say was given like Lehkonen and Nichushkin as line mates. So you're like, oh boy, like there's a hard working line that's got some finish. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of people right now are like, he's worth nothing. He's lost all this money. When really, if we're all expecting him to move, his play with the contender he joins probably means more than that team that sold him when they were going to miss the playoffs anyway, and he wasn't slotted correctly. I don't think
yeah.
he's fumbled the bag, so to speak, but it's certainly not the opening 49 games he's wanted. I just saw a comment here. Yeah, this is one I wanted to add in. This is Mickey O saying Lindholm's got no say over where he goes. That has to play in his mind. That could be a thing. There's a lot of new dads and young families on this team. Elias Lindholm does not have trade protection. Chris Tanev does. Jacob Markstrom does. And by protection, not full no moves necessarily. Markstrom does, but Tanev has a list, as would, I believe, Noah Hannafin, if I'm correct. So at least you feel like you have a little more control. Lindholm could feel like he's flapping in the wing, and I don't think extension conversations are things that are happening. So it's kind of just waiting for the guillotine to drop, so to speak.
Well, and if reports are true, he's also someone who said no to 8 or 9 million a year
Yeah.
just a couple of months ago. So that I don't know, that would keep me up at night a little bit if I was him right now. Now, as we say,
Yeah.
he has an
If you don't want to
opportunity
be
maybe
here,
to get
though,
back into there. But yeah,
what's the if you're ready for a change of scenery, you said, look, I've been in Calgary. I love the city. I had a great time, but I just look at my age. I look at where the team is in their life cycle. This just isn't a fit right now. So, I'll do my best to play well and get a haul for me. You guys be better, and I'll go somewhere and try to get a ring. I mean,
it's
I don't
definitely
know
the
that he's
right
worried about every dollar.
decision. Yeah, the couple $1 million over 8 years. So
For
I
sure.
would
Yeah,
think about it if I was
10 to
him,
20 he's lost
but
probably, right?
potentially, yeah. So that's a big chunk of change, but it is
Yeah.
probably the right decision long term for the player, and it's definitely the right decision long term for the team.
Yeah.
Maybe he made it, but yeah, I can't imagine what that would look like right now if that extension was about to kick in next year.
What do you see as a market for him? I guess not in terms of teams trading for him, but like a solid return. What does if I'm going to call him a defensively strong second line center that can produce when skills around him? What does that garner at the deadline? Do you have some comps you've liked, or maybe some lesser players that have had decent hauls?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on how they're anchoring him. Do they see him as that second or third member of a scoring line when he was with Gaudreau and Kachuk? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had some star to superstar seasons there.
He
I
did
mean,
40
that sort
goals.
of player can command an entire package, starting with a first round pick and probably one or two good prospects, right?
Yeah.
But are they anchoring against this season? Then they say, this is maybe a second line player who's I can take or leave, but we'd like to add him to our team, I guess. So then you're talking, just a handful of picks, right? A second
Late
this year, a
first,
second
maybe.
next year,
I look at
late first,
O'Reilly
yeah, something like that.
last year. He'd
Yeah,
won the cup, but clearly he's on the back nine,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's a depth move for the Leafs. They sort of thought, you could either play him on the wing in the top six, or he's your third line center. And there, I think there was also other pieces in that deal. If I recall it correctly, you might have had to eat some money along the way, which sort of complicates exactly what the price is. But there was a first to change hands there. That's not
yeah.
outrageous ask, was it?
No, and if I was the Flames, I'd be pretty disappointed if I don't at least get a first round pick for Lindholm, who was
Agreed.
considered almost a core player up until
Yeah.
this month, a player they were thinking about extending for 60-70 million dollars. I mean, if you should be getting a first at least.
Yeah.
That guy,
Yeah.
I think.
That's Hungry for More for DoorDash. Lindholm with the only goal of the game. That means it's a game winner. Use the promo code Nation25 for 25% off your first order when you download the DoorDash app, and free delivery on that first order. That's Nation25, your promo code on DoorDash. We'll take a break. When we come back, want to get to your questions or comments. There are a lot there. Kent, we will talk Jacob Markstrom for a moment, as well as your coming article in the Flames, which I think is a great big picture conversation. That on the other side here on Afterburner. Are you thinking of buying or selling your home in the Calgary area? Well, there's one guy you've got to talk to. That's my pal, Derek Newman. Derek, born and raised in Calgary, volunteer, a pillar of the community, huge sports fan, girls, golfs, all kinds of sports, not to mention, yes, he loves, indeed, the Calgary Flames. So if you want to talk real estate in your community, or you just want to chat about the Flames and what's going on in the sports world, you can give Derek a call. Incredibly friendly and approachable, but more importantly, trustworthy and incredibly hardworking. Take advantage of their complimentary in-house home staging consultation. Also, whether it's your first time or you're a seasoned buyer or seller of homes, he's going to understand what you're looking for and help you meet your goals. Also, Derek's network, substantial. He's able to find some homes that aren't even on the market yet. So whether you're buying or selling, or you just want to see what's going on with the value of your place, give him a call or a text. He's going to get back to you right away. Derek Newman of Newman Deans Real Estate with CIR Realty. Let Derek put his network to work for you. Call or text Derek right now at 403-619-6661 or email him at dnewman@cirrealty.ca.
Greta, it's our home away from home for Afterburner. We'll be there for live watch parties throughout the season. Should be your spot regardless. Before, during, and after the game, grab a cocktail, something from the menu, let the games begin, or maybe you get into the game yourself. Over 50 arcade games from vintage to state-of-the-art. Load up some credits on that Greta game card of yours and get at it. Greta Calgary, located at 213 10th Avenue Southwest. Check them out online, gretabar.com. We are well into the winter months now, and you can feel it, can't you? That urge to get away. Maybe some beach time to warm up those bones of yours, maybe a hockey, sports kind of road trip. Well, when you pack your bags, make sure you don't forget Alberta Blue Cross. There's only one thing better than sharing memories, and that's making new ones. Alberta Blue Cross travel insurance protects your memories and more, wherever travel takes you. Visit ab.bluecross.ca/travel for more information. Alberta Blue Cross, celebrating life's memorable moments inspired by hockey.
Welcome back to Afterburner. It's a 1-0 shutout victory for Jacob Markstrom, his 20th of his career. I think he had, 9 a couple of years ago, Kent, his first full year under Daryl. Vladar had a couple thrown in there as well. He finished second in Vezina voting. Last year was very different. And then this year, another couple shutouts on a much inferior squad. This is not often do you go to free agency and say, you know what, that was money well spent. And I don't know that he's the best example of that. Chris Tanev might be for Brad Living, but when COVID hit, there was a goalie available. This team wanted to upgrade their net mining, and there had not been much in the way of stability, stretching all the way back to Mika Kiprasov. Markstrom has given them 3 years where it's been like, yeah, I could see why he gets Vezina votes. Or 2 of the 3 years.
Yeah, it's too bad the team hasn't been able to leverage it. More so.
Well, and to be fair, they win the Pacific the year that they faced Edmonton in round 2, and if the whole team wanted to have a better series, that was your chance to leverage it. They didn't, and that summer things fell apart.
I was going to say it's they had the chance, and then probably one of his worst stretches started with that Edmonton series, and it almost seemed to bleed into the next season where
miserable.
I don't know.
Year. Yeah,
he looked completely out of sorts. So good for him for coming back. But it's too bad that it was bad timing. Let's put it that way for him to kind of fall off when he did.
Yeah. And again, I think probably rehashing it, but I've said pretty consistently, if you ask a player is that competitive at his age with the motives of why he signed here, if he'd be willing to waive to get somewhere and he'll have a say in where he goes, I don't get the sense that's going to be a big problem at all, because he's a fiery competitor. He has not won. I think he would like to win. And a lot of his friends and pals that were part of the allure of coming here, not to mention the competitive nature of the squad, that's changed remarkably. Chris Tanev's his old pal from Vancouver. He and Lindholm were apparently very tight. That helped in the recruiting process. The Flames were winning the division with him. All three of those things are not potentially here for Jacob Markstrom moving forward past the deadline.
Yeah, and he's getting into his mid-30s too, right? I mean, this is
It's
his
time.
Yeah, the last couple of years here are his last chance to be a starter on a contender. So it would make total sense if to wave and be like, go and try to win a cup somewhere, but
Yep.
you never know. So we'll see.
We definitely don't know. Yeah, and that's we've talked about how is that conversation broached? Is it casually talked about all year between GM and player? Is it something very sacred? Is it an agent call because it's a list of teams that you're theoretically inquiring about? We just know it didn't go well with Joe McGinley when that one was waived. No. Kind of. Maybe get it in writing, fellas. Eh?
It was a nightmare.
Yeah. We'll get to your upcoming article in a moment, but first I want to tell you about Charm Diamond Centers. They are proudly Canadian owned and operated since 1972. With more than 85 locations from coast to coast to coast through Charm and their sister brands, you can get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program, not to mention their unbeatable pricing policy. Whether it's mine diamonds or Canadian lab-grown diamonds, lots of options. Check them out. Find out more at charmdiamondcenters.com. Kent, what are you working on here? I know you are doing some freelance work at the Herald. I don't know. Can you tell us the regularity or sort of how this arrangements come to work? We love your writing. How often and what's the next topic, I suppose?
Well, it's 3 or 4 times a month, kind of depending on my own schedule, because I also have a day job. So sometimes I'm busier than others, but yeah, it's roughly once a week if I can make it happen.
Okay. And you said your next piece is dropping Monday? Is that right? Or soon?
Yeah, it should be early in the week.
Okay.
Sometimes it depends on just getting column inches in the paper. So I submit and they say it'll be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I just kind of wait for it to appear. But yeah, my next piece is it's kind of looking at the MO, the underlying philosophy of the way the team has operated mostly over the last 10, 20 years. And I think if you could summarize it, it would be, spend to the cap, try to be competitive, and never be bad on purpose. That's kind of how I open. Like if someone came up to me in the street and said, can you describe succinctly how the Flames run the organization? That would be it.
Yeah.
And then I describe, it's probably the young guns and then the Cinderella run that ended that sort of has formed that philosophy in the front office and why it kind of is the way they do business. So it kind of goes through not so much the practical things, but maybe the psychological and emotional underpinnings of all that stuff.
It was a dark, dark, miserable time in Calgary for this franchise when you went from Jerome McGinley making his debut in the playoffs in 1996 and not returning to the playoffs until 2004. And I think fans that maybe didn't have to live through that, or maybe with bad memories, or at least, hey, it's so far removed, you forget. There was Save the Flames campaigns. That building had the vibe of a morgue, and the owner didn't get any playoff revenue for a long time. It's not what people want to hear. Yeah, it was. And it's also why some people don't get behind Blasty. That really brings up some bad memories. They've really not won much in Blasty, despite the 1 year a couple of years ago. And so, I mean, I think it's a great article. I'm looking forward to it. It's a great talking point because I think there's a lot of heat aimed at the owner for the philosophy of what a successful season is. But I think there's also reasons why that's a philosophy they have, to the point of your article. And the one thing I would love to ask you, how does a new building on the horizon with a theoretical, opening in the fall of 2027 change any organizational philosophies? Would you hope it changes it? That, okay, we've got this brand new shiny profit center, we're going to charge more for the same shit. We better have a competitive team, or is it business as usual?
I mean, I'm sure ideally in the halls of the Saddle Dome right now, they would want to launch that building with excellence, right? To have not just excited that you have a shiny new building, but excited because you have a good team, or you have even maybe if you can have a Bedard or a new generational, new era defining talent that
Sure.
shows up. When Goudreau showed up in his first game,
Right.
it's a different feeling in the air. And when you had Jerome McGinley, it took him a while, but you could tell early on that this was a defining talent. And if you
Yeah.
could have a new building and a defining talent at the same time, it would be huge.
Yeah, especially for those that like the bottom line, selling jerseys and beers.
That's
and
right.
Wins are good for business, friends.
They do
Okay,
help.
well, so we look forward to that coming up in the Herald. Appreciate that. We do have a clip from Hockey Night tonight that I want to react to. I don't know if people saw it or not. Elliot does his Saturday headlines, which is a great sort of weekly collection of what GMs theoretically are talking about. Here he is with Ron McLean on Hockey Night.
This week, Steve Staios had a tremendous press conference Thursday morning, and he talked about seeking pros. So what's he seeking? Got an idea?
Well, there's one pro whose name came across my desk in the last 24 to 48 hours, and that's Chris Tanev of the Calgary Flames. And it makes a lot of sense, Like when you talk about pros in the NHL, Tanev is one of the top names you'd come up with, and he makes perfect sense for a guy to be on Ottawa's radar, and he is. Now, I don't know what the possibility is of this at this time. I think Chris Tanev would probably prefer a playoff scenario this year. For this year, the Senators are not a playoff team. We'll see about the future, but I do think he's one of the names on their radar.
I have a tough time with this one, Kent, because I think that sounds like a June Elliott update.
Right.
That sounds like the perfect guy for the Sens to chase in free agency. It makes no sense for the Ottawa Senators to give up assets for a guy they can go sign for just money on July 1st when they are as out of it as they are. They're below the Flames in the standings with that really nice young core of players somehow. I'm not saying what he's saying isn't true. I just think the missing context is that Tanev is probably traded somewhere not Ottawa before the Ottawa Senators can get their paws on him, and they may very well do that in free agency.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense for Ottawa to acquire Tanev now, especially at a premium, because a lot of teams, ironically, Tanev might get the Flames the best package of any of the guys they trade, because he's just that guy that all those teams want. Every contender is going to want a Tanev because of his character, because he's a great shutdown defenseman. He's a warrior, so that's the hockey man sort of biblical kind of character.
Yeah,
right?
man,
So,
like Ben Sherratt, like David Savard, like
and he's better.
Much inferior players have garnered huge hauls at the deadline. And you look at what Matthias Ekholm did for the Oilers last year, and I'm not saying they're the same, but they aren't dramatically different in the sense that they're defense first, very trustworthy players that play their asses off and are physical and big. Maybe not as much offense in Tanev, but we're talking about an elite defender still here as he's, I think, set to turn 34.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, if the Senators want to trade the Flames their first round pick,
please do.
Be really good. Sure, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, wait till June.
Totally agree. Okay, so we're on the same page there, and that's not a shot at Elliott so much as, I guess, trying to maybe surround Elliott's insights, which I believe are true, with the context of where on the calendar he's talking about. That's a July 1 fit for Ottawa for sure. They need right shot D. They need some veterans that know how to defend. It's a perfect fit, just not for the last third of the year when you have to give up assets to get them.
To be fair, I often don't know what the Senators are doing. So
yeah. And wouldn't it be something if they brought in Alex DeBrincat and then zipped them out a year later, and they did the same thing with Jacob Chychrun? I understand there's been a regime change, but boy, there's a whole lot of churn going on there.
Yeah, I don't. Good luck to him.
Let's get to some questions and comments. Our fine producer, Jack, is back at his humble abode, sifting through the finest comments and questions from you. What would be considered a good return for Tanev? That coming in from Alex. I think if you get a first, that would be smashing. If you could get a young defenseman or something, anything of that value level, and I don't think it's impossible given some of the comps that we just mentioned that garnered firsts at the deadline prior. And also I think about this was a free agent signing for a guy that had durability issues and questions, coming off a just okay year, despite a sensational career type. It was off. He had an off year in his free agency. Welcome to the club, Elias Lindholm. If you could sign a guy in free agency, get 4 good years out of him, he was mostly durable, and that was the biggest knock on him, and you could move him for a first at the end of that 4-year free agent deal, that's a bleeping home run. It's probably the best free agent signing Brad Treliving has if it ends that way.
I was about to say, is that the best Treliving free agent signing? It has to be.
Yeah, and that's not to say there aren't other, but the way you always say those things is like, okay, it's a little expensive. There's probably too much term, and you're not going to like the last year. And what you're saying here is he's actually providing value. He has maintained a high level of play. He was functional in his final year, and we turned him into an asset that may or may not help add a core piece for the next decade. That it doesn't get better than that. And the only fly in the ointment is every time you watch a game, he's putting his body in places most people don't have the courage to do it. And
that's
the gods of all pucks, crossbars, and ice surfaces that if you're a Flames fan, he is healthy when this theoretical auction closes for him prior to the deadline.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier, that's another reason to get out in front of the market if you're the Flames. Like, don't give Tanev another month to take another puck to the face or break his ankle or separate his shoulder, right? Because he's a kamikaze style, selfless warrior dude. So yeah, don't let that happen. Yeah,
I agree with you on that. Okay, let's get some other questions. That's a few on Tanev with the Elliott bomb there as well. Will the fans embrace the tank if you play the kids? Well, I mean, it depends how good the kids are. But I do think there is a hunger amongst fans to see this turned over. But the problem is you can't really do the full turnover. You're locked into 5 years of Nazem Kadri, another 7 of Jonathan Huberdeau, and maybe not a goalie. But I mean, I don't think fans would be upset to see more Pospisil, more Dustin Wolf, to see Pelche when he's healthy up here, to try Connor Zary down the middle next season potentially, to see what Jeremy Poirier could do when he recovers from a pretty nasty injury that he suffered this fall as a guy that theoretically could run your power play. I don't think that's unappealing, but I also think people have to understand there's not going to be a lot of wins right out of the gate.
Yeah, the sense I get talking to fans, and I have my own sort of Discord server as well with the community, is people are kind of ready to embrace change because it's getting clear that the path that they're on doesn't really lead anywhere. So
yeah,
I think it'll be less about watching game to game because you're right. It's going to be, they trade all these veterans. They're not going to be great, even with Huberdeau and Kadri sticking around. It's not going to be a great team, but if it's communicated that this is the new path that we got to take to find the next Iginla, to find the next Gaudreau, I think people will embrace that. Then, getting back to the young guns thing that I talked about, that was the darkest period in this franchise's history, but it did get you Jarome Iginla because you traded Nieuwendyk for him, right? So
yeah, I guess. I mean, the dark years were Iginla's debut was a playoff game. It was when he arrived that you went into that horrible trough. So it didn't really get you Iginla so much as it probably gets you. No, that wouldn't be it either. I don't know. I mean, it got you Daryl. That's what it probably got you. But I don't know. I guess the beginning of the young guns is how you got to Jarome Iginla. All of a sudden, guys like
the thing that created
Roberts and Nieuwendyk and Gilmore said, I want to get paid.
And Gilmore.
They're like, we're out of here. So you're right. It was the crumbling of the 89 core. That's how you got them. Yeah.
Yep.
Next question. What do we got, Jacko? I don't even know if we'd finished that thought. I'm just moving on. Markstrom signed a no move clause. Why would he waive it? If it wasn't important to him, he wouldn't have signed it in the first place. What you want is control of your situation. Because you have a no move does not mean you don't ever want to leave. It means if you do, you want to be able to say, I want to go there. And it's a sign of leverage in negotiation when you can get it added. It can only happen to players with a certain amount of service time accrued in the league. And he's signing Calgary to win. If Jacob Markstrom's looking at the next 3 years, what's the 3-year best outcome for the Calgary Flames? It ain't what he wants, which is a cup. So that's why you
players with no move clauses move all the time. It's
Yes,
just
they do.
they get to call their shot a little bit better, right?
Yeah, or it's like, hey, get us a short list, and we'll do the best we can. And Jacob might say, look, I love my time here. I'll build you as big a list as possible so you guys can do well. But I want to go to a place I can win. Like that is my guess or my expectation of what would happen if they had that conversation before March.
Yeah.
The other thing, you talk about stockpiling young guys, and the last question was about the kids. I mean, you don't know what Dustin Wolf is at the NHL level yet. That could be a massive piece, or it could be a nothing burger. He has been one of the greatest AHL goalies probably ever. Statistically incredible. He's been goalie of the year every league he's played in for the last 4 years. He was the MVP of the American League last year. He's probably in line to win another goalie of the year this year. That might be the biggest piece of it all. And it also could be nothing because that's goaltending. But I feel like sometimes he's forgotten when we talk about the prospect cupboards and all the conversation about the Zaries and Pospasils and Coronados and, Hanzik, who, because of his birth date, will be able to come up and down next year between the A and the N in theory. He's, I don't want to say forgotten guy, because everyone, I think, loves the story, but that still could be your best player in a really short amount of time.
Yeah, the last prospect, Flames prospect, that was this decorated was Johnny Gaudreau before coming up, right?
Sure.
Kobe Baker, all the, gold medal winner.
Yeah.
I've never seen
played well. Yeah.
a goalie prospect in the Flames organization ever have these sort of bona fides before making the NHL.
Yeah.
So at some point, they have to bring them up. They have to keep them up here, and they have to see what they have.
Let's get some more questions. Wolf Tangent. Wanted to get that out. What did you think we'd get? I think it's a complicated deal. Not a lot of teams have $6 million cap space. So now we're talking retention. And the thing about retaining money is you can only do it on 3 contracts at a time, and there's 3 years left. So it really hampers your ability to eat salary in future transactions, where if you are big picture going to retool, you could have a Igor Sharangovich deal in a year. He's only got 1 year left here until free agency, despite the really positive start. That's a decision they're going to have to make in the next 13 months, probably, on him. They could also extend him this summer. But, there's other guys as well. I think Blake Coleman, with 1 or 2 years left, if he's playing at this level, that's someone you might want to retain on. All of a sudden, that's a very, very big thing to ask someone, not to just retain money, but to do it for 3 years and limit where else you can retain. Never mind if they end up doing it on a Lindholm, Hanifin, or Tanev deal. So I would think if you're selling peak Markstrom, I would expect 2 to 3 very good pieces, whether that's firsts, high-end prospects, or young players that are just down the depth chart on championship level teams. But I mean, it's a goalie. Some organizations philosophically won't pay for goalies. Carolina doesn't. They just say, who was bad last year? These guys are all crazy. We'll gamble on the bounce back. And it's worked for them basically for a decade until this year.
Rather than retention, I think what might happen with the hypothetical Markstrom trade is you just take bad money back.
Sure.
Like one of the
fourth
goalies
liner
they don't
making
want,
$3
that
million.
sort of thing. Or if they have a goalie who's making $4 million that they don't want anymore, you take that guy back, and then you get better pieces because you do that. But
right, that's a good point. Rather
there's
than
going
use
to
the
be
retention slot.
Yeah, there's going to be cap or money that has to be involved somehow.
It's another thing we haven't really talked about, but the Flames have opened up enough wiggle space where if you are going to sell 2 of those 3 UFAs, if not more, AJ Greer was certainly a candidate for that. And now it's a almost healed AJ Greer you'd be taking to market. So I don't know how that works for a 12th or 13th forward. That's going to be tough, but they'll have the ability to be a bank at the deadline where it's like, okay, Toronto's adding this defenseman from this other team. They're going to eat half, but we need someone else to eat half because Toronto's got 8 cents in cap space. We're going to keep cutting this in half until that trade works. You can pick up a second or third rounder depending on how much money you eat in that kind of a transaction. And I think that's a really, really smart way to garner more picks. They don't have their quoted of 7 this year. They have 6. They traded a 5th away.
Right.
So they're still in a deficit this year for picks. And I'd expect, if depending whether it's this next or the year after, you should be 3 to 5 more picks in your pocket when you get to March 10th, I think, if Craig Conroy goes about it that way.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever weaponized their cap space like that in the past, and it was.
And they've been capped out too, right?
they're usually capped out. You're right. So, but it would be nice to see them get, creative like that and start building up a surplus of futures. Because you're right, they're still in deficit
Yeah.
even now. I mean, they still traded a first to get rid of Monahan, right? So
yeah, that
that's
Florida first. That I mean, if the Flames and the Panthers were middling, or both were bad, or both were good, I mean, that whole pick matrix gets really confusing. If the Panthers are
very
good and the Flames
confusing.
are bad, it's very simple. The Panthers
Right.
have to finish and pick in the top 10 this year for some of those things to kick in. That's not happening. Panthers look like they're going to be good for a while. Flames don't look like they're there yet. The Flames will keep their own pick. Montreal will receive the 2025, not this summer, but next Panthers pick. That is the most probable outcome at this point for those trying to sort out the 15 pages of conditions.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Very weird. Yeah. Any more from Jack? Questions from the audience? Given the current situation, who would you want on your team, Huberdeau or Dubois? I'll take the younger, more talented player, but I don't know that either right now have their stock at a lower level than it's ever been. Like it's rock bottom right now for both in the old market.
Yeah, that's pretty ugly. I would take Dubois as well, but just because I don't know,
younger tools,
contract's a little better and younger.
Yeah, it is a little better too.
Yeah.
It's $2 million. That's right. It's not nothing.
Right, so
next one for you here after a 1-0 Flames victory. Can we still make the playoffs? Well, who's we? Are you talking about your beer league team? What's going on here? The Flames could certainly run the table. Their probability would be,
they'd have to play
just less than 5%
at
this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very long shot.
If they win 16 in a row, like the Edmonton Oilers, maybe. Yeah.
They're only missing a few superstars that the Oilers have. And by a few, I mean more than a few. Yeah.
Yeah. So possible, not probable.
If Huska thinks giving the fourth liners 2 minutes, missing a word, is Huska the right coach? I've really liked what Ron Huska does. And to be fair, which of those fourth liners are for sure NHLers?
No.
Adam Klapka was on no one's radar 2 years ago. Cole Schwint put up middling numbers in the American League. That's a fourth line because their fourth line's gone. It was Ruzicka, Dubé, and AJ Greer. None of those guys are playing. I mean, Walker Duehr had a really impressive few months last year. That's it on his resume. I think he didn't play the fourth line because it's mostly comprised of fifth liners.
Yeah, they weren't making a difference or anything. So it's one thing that drove me nuts about his last season when it comes to Daryl Sutter was rolling four lines all the time. Even in nights where you're trying to protect the one goal lead or you're down by 2 and fourth line's out there for every other shift in the third period. You're just, come on, why are you doing this? So it makes a lot of sense to shorten the bench in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you're better players in bigger spots. There was a lot of Nick Ritchie, Trevor Lewis, and Milan Lucic in the final 3 minutes of a game. And to be fair, that's just not good game management.
No.
Last couple, Jack, on a Saturday night. A little quiet out there.
It's getting late.
It's getting late. With the GMs at the All-Star games, Connie asked Markey, Kadri, Coleman what they want to do. Well, they're not there. Lindholm is at the All-Star game. But I think this 10-day window is an opportunity for the GM to tighten the screws on some of the business he's got to get done before. Is it March 9 or 8? I keep confused. I think it's March 9 is the deadline this year.
One of those.
It's definitely one of those 2 days. But you got 10 days. Yep. And I don't know that when you're playing 3 games in 5 nights, if you're this goalie, for example, that's the time to broach this conversation. But maybe you say, hey, grab a Mai Tai, leave your family on the beach for 20, and let's talk shop if you want. And then you has the sunburn, and you got one of those straw hats. And then, oh, by the way, you okay if we talk some business? I think it's time.
Yeah, everyone over 26 years old, the GM should be talking to on this team.
Yeah, and I also just think anyone talking about trading Coleman and Kadri, like those types of contracts don't move. If they do, it's usually for something equally or more cumbersome coming back. And it's not that they're not good players. Like Kadri had a really nice bounce back year. Coleman's had a sensational career type year. There's just too much in the way of term and money. That's not what contenders are looking to do. The contenders are typically saying, okay, who can we rent short term? And then we'll see if it works or not when we have some small openings in the cap for next year. Teams that are contenders aren't sitting with $5 million a year with nothing to do but spend it on a fourth or a third liner like Blake Coleman, who's a great third liner. But like, no, that's exactly why he didn't stay in Tampa. They can't pay for that slot.
Right. Yeah. He's having the kind of year where you could maybe look around, see if anyone's interested. But you're right. It's really difficult for teams of that caliber to absorb that contract next year and the year after. Right. So that's where retention would probably have to come in.
Yeah. And look, maybe a team like Arizona, it's like Connor Ingram's having the best year ever. This decor is better than we thought. We need a veteran. Okay, sure. But most of the teams that are going into the playoffs, just no cap space. It is what it is. And we're going to get a 5% raise every year for the next few here, as was collectively bargained. But yeah, it's been really tough for GMs to get work done, and the stuff that's the least hard is contracts that are expiring at the end of the year. That's why we see them move all the time. Could you get a better deal if you package Lindy and Markey? Maybe. I think you also limit the number of people that can get the deal done. That's over $10 million cap space you're talking about. So potentially you could. But more likely is if you're talking to a combined 10 to 12 teams about those two players, there might only be one or two that could find a way to get both those guys in.
Yeah, you have very limited trade partners for a deal of that magnitude.
Yeah. Okay. Unless there's something sensational, we're going to call it there. Was there any part of you that thought this was going to overtime? I did see the last few rushes, even that glove save that Markstrom made. And I'm just like, oh my God, the D-man's backing up and blocking. Like Markstrom's now screened and he's not pressuring the shot. And of course it's a wire job that he catches just under the bar. Whew. I thought I smelled overtime.
Since the Flames can't seem to beat this Chicago team.
That's right.
They're miserable, right? So was this their second win against them or something?
They've lost 5 in a row. It would have been their 5th in a row, excuse me. I had tweeted in true Pinder fashion midway through the game, if you're looking to lose your 5th in a row to the rebuilding Hawks, giving up 27,000 breakaways against would be a sound idea, policy, philosophy, strategy. That was the word. But they didn't. They tightened up. There was no more breakaways after that. So kudos to Jacob Markstrom on shutout number 2 of the season, his 20th of his career. Unfortunately, Greta's just going to be a good time on a Saturday night. No freebies, because they hit you up with the freebies if it's an overtime win for the Flames. But I think the fellas are probably A-okay getting 2 points. They'll be, I imagine, just dissolving across North America to tropical islands around the globe, set to return. I imagine they could meet in the Boston area on February 5th. That would make sense to me. Get a practice, play the Bruins the next day. That's where they resume post All-Star schedule. Everyone but Elias Lindholm's got 10 days, Kent, and that means it'll be at least 10 days before we chat with you again. Thanks so much for coming on tonight. Do appreciate it. Always enjoy your insights and chewing on the fat big picture with this club.
Yeah, thanks. My pleasure.
Right on. And thanks to all of you for hanging out with us on this night. Reminder to give us the old 5-star review if you can. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. That helps us on our end. And tell those sponsors of ours you love them. Go see them. And if you don't like the show, just keep your mouth shut. See you later. Have a good night.